the evolution of technology and society is becoming like increasingly like more rapid, right? With ChatGPT getting released, there was like a very quick hype cycle. Everybody's like, AGI is coming, right? I don't know if that's a term that's familiar for you. It's actually science fiction stuff like Terminator, Skynet. I think the reality is that we're pretty far away from that. Although I think people are finding that these models aren't quite where they need to be to, like, let's say, generate production code completely autonomously. Because I think human values, I think, are still important in a lot of these things, right? And it's very difficult to like sort of codify, like the soul, right? To turn poetic.
Hi, I'm Veronica Manuel, and I'm joined today with blockchain and decentralized finance expert Marek Laskowski of New Order Dao. Marek is the technical lead at New Order and is also the advisor at H2O Protocol. Marek, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thanks, Veronica. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So I know that you are an expert in DeFi, decentralized finance. And before we touch upon some of the cool innovations that you guys are doing in the DeFi space, I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about decentralized science and D-data. So decentralized science is kind of a big umbrella term for a lot of things happening in the scientific field on the blockchain. Could you explain a little bit what you know to be decentralized science and D-data, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. In my view, like it's a pretty big umbrella, right, in terms of what might fall under decentralized science and decentralized data. What I see, being explored in the space is, kind of, at least some of the more stuff I think is going to be fruitful is in a lot of the sort of like kind of public good sphere of science, for example, that's not getting funded by governments, it's not getting funded by big corporations, right? I think the promise and the excitement behind decentralized science is that groups of people can get together, they can pool funds, they can manage those funds to research particular goals and things like that. And what I think is actually most interesting about DeSci is it's sort of like intimately tied with this idea of blockchains, right? And one of the really cool things about blockchains is that you can have sort of like a time stamped provenance of like data and analyses and models, and you can sort of have like a recorded pipeline of here's where we got the data from, here's what we did to the data, here's the analysis that resulted, and it really gives citizens, people at large, the tools to sort of better trust scientists. That's what really excites me. And obviously, to maybe answer the second part of that, I tend to ramble. I'm regular Marek these days, as you can see. I used to actually teach data science many years ago. I used to be Professor Marek. I don't teach anymore, so I'm regular Marek. So apologies if I give sort of like long-winded sort of answers. But in terms of DeSci, it's sort of D data. It's a topic that and a buzzword that's been around for I think like some decades now, right? It's really this notion that a big source of data in the past, right, has been, sort of like centralized databases, whether it's government databases, whether it's, databases that are collected by insurance companies, other big organizations and things like that. And I think what decentralized data, the promise is that like, individuals or groups of individuals, are also generating very valuable data, and, that these sort of small players can publish their data and also like monetize that data, and again, kind of coming back to the case for DeSci, what's great is that by virtue of the fact that a lot of these systems are built on blockchains, you automatically get things like traceability, provenance. You can track IP rights, all these wonderful things on sort of like a neutral public ledger, right? That's what really excites me.
Yeah, and just for our viewers, I do love the word provenance, as it kind of clarifies what it means is the origin of where something
Right.
comes from, right? So in AI, the provenance of AI data is where does that data originate from? And we'll talk about AI if I can just pick your brain on that in just a second. But because New Order is a DAO, and so decentralized governance might be some comfortable territory for us to talk about. I was curious, when we're thinking about decentralized science and you're talking about how corporate or very few but powerful entities can control a lot of scientific progress. How do you see DAO structures kind of playing into decentralized science? Do you see a lot of projects like that on the radar right now? Or do we have room to grow there? Like, what's that all about?
Yeah, I think definitely. It's definitely early days. As far as that whole like DeSci movement, well, that whole idea kind of was an outgrowth of the Dow concept, and Dow, the word the acronym is decentralized autonomous organization, and there's like many terms in this wider space, it's got a lot of sort of criticism. Like there's the famous quip about smart contracts. They're neither smart nor contracts. Ha ha ha. Right. And so similarly, people are saying, people wage criticism against Dow. Some of it's well deserved. A lot of it's sort of like straw man sort of arguments. They find a Discord chat that calls itself a DAO, and they're like, look, all DAOs are Discord chats, but there's certainly more there, right? There's certainly this idea that using blockchains, tokenization, cryptocurrencies, and smart contracts themselves, right? You can actually build things, entities, let's call them, that are somewhere between organizations and protocols, right? And I think that the space is kind of getting away from this term DAO for a variety of reasons, right? And I think the reality is that a lot of those ideas within DAOs, like decentralized decision making, where groups of stakeholders can get together. They don't even maybe know each other in real life, so to speak, right? And using DAO tools and DAO like systems, such groups can get together, coalesce around a unified goal, direct resources towards that goal, and even sometimes partake in the benefits of the creation of some value there, right?
Yeah, so go ahead and introduce to me and to our viewers a bit about New Order DAO and why you chose to design it as a DAO. What do you guys do, and why is that decentralized governance so important?
Yeah, for sure. So, New Order is a type of venture DAO. It's specifically an incubation DAO that is very involved in bringing ideas. Sometimes ideas come from the community. Sometimes ideas come from uh, you know uh, you know other protocols and projects that we've known in the space that approach us. That's actually like how the H2O project got started. Is some folks from the ocean ecosystem came by, and they realized we were launching this venture DAO. They said, it might be interesting for you to look into getting into like data economy and building tools to sort of service and grow the emerging data economy. And that's sort of how the rest is history, so to speak, right? But in terms of New Order and why we wanted to experiment, it's really an on-chain experiment to see. To my knowledge, there have been other venture DAOs that have sort of been created. They're mostly focused on things like around fundraising and funding projects, whereas New Order is very much hands-on, building and helping with things like tokenomics and token design, branding, um, uh, oftentimes like technical development and support there with respect to like architecture and building and so forth. And what's actually interesting is this notion or this experiment we started was to see if we could get like a community of contributors to kind of coalesce around this idea and to sort of build together. And I would say we've had some good successes in that vein, like over the almost 2 years now that we've been operating. We found a number of founders just coming in through our Discord. We have ideas coming in from kind of like all over the place to have new sort of protocols built. So like, I mean, we've been focused. Our bread and butter has sort of been in the DeFi area, but we've obviously always had an interest in more data and AI sort of related projects that's been embodied by H2O and some of our other efforts. So I would say, in terms of like decision making mechanisms and governance mechanisms, one of the things that we espoused like fairly early on was this idea of evidence based decision making, and I think we had a very strong data science group going for a while that did some analyses around how airdrops were received and used, and they had some very interesting results that we sort of published a while back. But we've sort of been really pouring our energy into building, and launching, new projects. That's really what brings value to our community. But I would say that this idea of data, evidence based decision making, building on those things is really woven into a lot of the projects that we've launched. A lot of them have very active, groups that are involved in like research and analysis of a variety of phenomena. So it's more like kind of ingrained, I would say, in our culture.
Yeah, so I know that being a technical lead, that you have your fingers on the pulse of a lot of cool tech at your disposal, both to implement in DeFi and also leverage AI tools. For example, LLMs that can help you code. That I see as more of a tactical use of AI, being able to enhance your coding, efficacy, make your code faster, less buggy, etc. But from a strategic point of view, like, what's your opinion on AI Dows? I feel that this is an inevitable future. Like, for example, would New Order ever help out an AI Dow? Have you considered things like that before?
I would say absolutely, right. I mean, it's something that we've been looking at very hard. Whether we published a 2023 thesis, for things that we're interested in very early this year. I'm struggling to remember. It was a while back now. I'm struggling to remember, whether this idea of like, data DAOs and DeSci made it into that edition of the thesis, but certainly it's something that we've been talking about quite a bit lately in terms of our like publications and research and things like that. So it's something we definitely believe in. Right now we're, sort of through, the activities of H2O, we've sort of gotten involved we were involved in the Augment hackathon,
Mhm.
back in Paris. It's a very interesting collaborations and results there. We actually worked with a language modeler, someone like an enthusiast, someone who actually works in that space, to create a custom domain specific LLM based chatbot that can sort of answer questions about very specific DeFi protocols and things like that. So one of I think the main achievement of that actually was that we managed to token gate it and sell access to it using Ocean Market. So I think massive achievement. And I think it opened the doors. Certainly we were built on the shoulders of giants for sure. Like a lot of work's been done by Ocean Protocol. Big shout out to Roberto as well. Done a lot of heavy lifting there. We really demonstrated that these sort of whether they're independent builders or whether it's like a DAO, like an AI Dow. We met a few out there, AI3 for example, other folks as well. We really showed that these they're building products that are actually useful to either projects or individuals. And it really opened people's eyes, like that it's just that easy that these groups can now monetize their work using Ocean. And if, in that particular example, actually, it was using the H2O non-pegged stable asset. That's a medium of exchange for data products. So it really showcased that whole part of the ecosystem. So it was very exciting.
Yeah, I did keep tabs on your project there from Augment Hack, and I'm super proud of what you guys accomplished. I just want to, I realized that maybe I jumped into the AI Dow question without first defining what an AI Dow is, so that our viewers who aren't quite as familiar yet with what that language even means. I know it's a bunch of acronyms right now, but just to paraphrase what you said, and then also to sum up what an AI Dow is. To your point about a decentralized autonomous organization, it's an organization that uses the blockchain for its transactions, voting, sharing funding, and an artificial intelligence that is able to operate on the blockchain and sell its own goods and make its own money and govern itself and, in a sense, be truly autonomous or at least supervised in part by humans, right? What you're saying is, at least in the early days here, that New Order, in its one of its earliest ventures with an AI DAO, or maybe not an AI DAO, you would call it, but a large language model AI, that you guys were able to implement a DeFi layer on top of that by implementing a token gate on the LLM chatbot, also using the H2O token and Ocean smart contracts. So I did want to just sum all of that up, and also kind of define their AI DAOs, because you said that you guys in your roadmap might consider working along with a truly autonomous AI decentralized organization, which is pretty futuristic, and it's exciting. It's really cool. I'm kind of nervous personally to see how AI takes money from humans, and it's like its own business, but it will offer us things in return, right? And you're starting to see that with ChatGPT, for example, Midjourney. These AIs are still largely governed by humans, but you can imagine very easily when they will not need human supervision to make their own money and provide services to humans. Weaving in H2O protocol as well, because you do a lot of work there, and we work closely with you guys on creating a new data economy. So a lot of people don't understand that AI needs a lot of data to train itself. And of course, there are smart contracts in place now, you could say, are still in the early days to share data with AI, for example. How does H2O fit into the picture of maybe creating that medium of exchange, that decentralized finance incentive system to share data? And do you kind of see that working with AI? Like, what's some of the friction at this point in that space?
Yeah, those are some great questions, and stuff that I think about like quite a bit, right? In terms of data economy, I mean, geez, like that was an idea I kind of first read about, maybe around like 2011 or so. So like more than 10 years ago, and I think a lot of folks were even talking about it kind of before that, right? Despite that sort of being like maybe the original literature on that being written some time ago, I think it's still, in terms of like adoption and rolling out and finding its product market fit, I think the data economy is still like early days. I think for sure, right? I think most people would probably, that's not, I don't think it's a terribly controversial statement, right?
No, it's not.
And so, I think the key realization, and like I speak with the Trent often. He also made this realization that models, like trained models, are like essentially just like very highly refined data, right? That's also probably amongst the most valuable kinds of data, right? That it's because it's very kind of like actionable kind of data. You can use these models to make predictions, whether it's prediction of what the next right word to say is, or whether predicting things like DeFi prices, or how perhaps climate's changing, and these sort of things. Um, like I sort of realized that among those things, AI was the one, or like chatbots specifically was the one that was like really igniting the like imagination and interest of actually like the sort of like it actually had mass market appeal, right? I sort of
Mhm.
the aha moment was like, we're all sort of like looking for, as H2O, right, a medium of exchange for data exchange, trying to see like, well, what kinds of data are people actually paying for, right? And I guess, yeah, like I was saying, the aha moment was realizing that people are actually swiping their credit card to get access to things like ChatGPT, right? Which is
Mhm.
essentially API programmatic access to a data model effectively, right? So we've been pretty excited about that idea for a little while now, and along with, I think, probably some other verticals, some of which we haven't even necessarily seen. I mean, this notion of AI Dows and DeSci is still evolving very quickly, but I think amongst those, like general consumer interest in AI LLM based chatbots is probably going to drive a lot of interest to this. To sorry, there's so many buzzwords.
D
Datafy is what I'm looking
er,
for, right? Like
okay,
financialized data,
Datafy,
right?
yeah.
It's gonna. There's a new one, new buzzword too, right? It's gonna. I believe it's gonna drive a lot of interest to that sort of space in the next like year or so, because like I think consumers are already very excited about this stuff. And to your point about like what these things are useful for, like I think there's been almost like the evolution of technology and society is becoming like increasingly like more rapid, right?
Mhm.
I think we almost had, for many years now, there's been sort of this notion of like an AI winter, right? For like a few decades now, there hasn't been like a ton of interest in AI. And now we kind of had, with Chat GPT getting released, there was like a very quick hype cycle. Everybody's like, AGI is coming, right? I don't know if that's a term that's familiar for you. Artificial
Mhm.
general intelligence. That's like,
Yeah.
essentially science fiction stuff like Terminator, Skynet, HAL 9000, this sort of stuff. And I think the reality is that we're pretty far away from that, right? But that doesn't mean to say that these models. There's a very famous saying, right, that all models are wrong, but some are useful. And I think that definitely applies here. Is there's lots of folks that are relying on Chat GPT, whereas before they would like do a Google search, and then especially somebody coming without a lot of domain knowledge backing them, right? They have to read like a lot of stuff, and there's sometimes a Google link will take you to bad information or not useful information.
Right.
And what's really great about these LLM based chatbots is they've already digested all this information, and you can have a conversation with it to learn and get up to speed very quickly. And although I think people are finding that these models aren't quite where they need to be to, like, let's say, generate production code, or like maybe in your example, like I don't think it's there yet where they can like steer a DAO completely autonomously, because I think human values, I think, are still important in a lot of these things, right? And it's very difficult to like sort of codify like the soul, right, to turn poetic for a moment, right? But like yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that in a roundabout way, that these are the sort of things that are going to drive interest in space. That's really my main.
Yeah, I know that the problem of AI alignment is definitely on everyone's mind who's thinking about AGI, and as you kind of alluded to in DAOs as well. How do you have an AI that is aligned with human values of creating goods that we'll actually want to consume, while it is also itself incentivized, to make money, perhaps, or which is sort of a human-like value as well. That definitely spurs a lot of creative thinking on that note. To diverge a little bit from AI, and I like to typically get to these questions a little later on, but I think you kind of have the tech chops to, explain here. Where can someone, for example, learn a lot of this coding knowledge to do DeFi incentive structuring tools and app building that you do, or that all of the folks at New Order do? I'm just curious because I'm trying to sort out and tease out of our conversation here kind of what is the builder's journey when they're listening to this podcast and looking up to you as a role model. How is a builder going to be able to start to do some of the cool things that you guys do, for example?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think the main takeaway is I think it's easier now than like it's literally ever been to like quickly pick up a topic. I mean, we mentioned some very powerful tools that have just come up, like these conversational tools. Like you can see all like the white in my beard here, right? Like when I went through like engineering school and stuff. This was actually I remember a time like pre World Wide Web, right? So now, like, if you want some documentation or you want to find something out, like a few years ago, you Google. Like, this is pre Google. Sometimes there was a website that could be reached for a project with documentation. Often not. It'd be like a little printed pamphlet. You largely have to just figure things out on your own. It was actually kind
Right.
of a nightmare. I'm surprised that anybody really did anything, right? Nowadays, if I was telling people, like, I used to think, for a time, I used to believe that like YouTube, these sort of video kind of tutorials and things, like they actually work. Like, I kind of like, because my profession was teaching, I'm like, this will never replace me, because look at me, I go up here and do my dance, right? But then after trying to learn, I mean, learning is a lifelong sort of endeavor.
Mhm.
There's new things that come up all the time, right? So, like, lately, when I've had to learn something, I find video lectures are actually a fantastic way of doing things. And I personally haven't tried to learn something yet, using conversational chatbots. But I mean, I'm talking to a few folks that are just starting their programming and building journey, and they're finding these tools fantastically valuable for like bouncing ideas off of, or sometimes, like, like I think we mentioned earlier in our conversation that these tools aren't, like, ready to maybe be completely on their own, right? Like, in terms of like writing production code and stuff, but in terms of like someone learning, it's a lot better. It's almost like a personal tutor, virtually, right? So that's, if I were to kind of go back, I think that's probably how I would get started. I mean, the other answer to your question is, not to toot our own horn at New Order too much, but we've been running this series of, we call them like boot camps, or something like this, where we've been getting people together, either in person or virtually, and just like participate, kind of like, not quite classroom environment, but more like kind of like seminar, kind of hangout. Like, most of it was to sort of get to know people, get to know their peers, like other kind of like-minded people, and we throw a lot of information at them. We had great speakers from a number of incubated projects, and researchers in the space, and so forth, to kind of give their opinions. So, like, I mean, we're not the only people doing that. Certainly, stay tuned for when we do that sort of thing again. But I think there's a lot of free resources available now. Some people like a structured program, other people don't. It's really kind of up to the individual person, what they prefer.
Yeah, there's a cool a company called Build Space that does something called Nights and Weekends that I've toyed around with. I used to use Build Space tutorials to learn smart contracts as well, like actual learning how to code my own little projects. And I think that the Nights and Weekends style of it's almost like a boot camp style where you can really build anything, and you get a lot of kind of motivational support in a more psychological sense, and also peer-to-peer kind of marketing support as well. But there's a lot of coders in there who build cool things, and it sounds like the boot camp that you guys are offering is another kind of way to inspire builders to build cool things and give them the support for them to actually get the traction and see their products through to completion, at least to the MVP stage, minimum viable product stage. So I will look out for that personally.
By the way, I love that name, Nights and Weekends. That's a fantastic name.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's a grind. It is. And you yourself work in an organization with a lot of coders who probably put in a lot of nights and weekends work, either just for New Order Dao or for their own projects too.
Yeah,
I mean, it just
us too. Like, Dows don't sleep. Is a 24-hour endeavor, and then, like, our incubated projects also don't sleep, right? And then, like,
Mhm.
this whole crypto ecosystem also doesn't sleep. So it's like
Yeah,
very
that's
much like
true.
nights and weekends. Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
if I could just, maybe my overall advice, my old man advice, right, is to actually, like, like, really really love what you do, and if what you're doing isn't what you love, then find out what it is, right?
Yeah.
Because it's definitely like, life is too short, and like, I think no one has infinite energy to like pursue something that they really don't like, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for those who are listening, who are interested in Web3 or are builders, for example, developers, that they kind of are aware of that to an extent and build the future that they want to be a part of. I think that kind of doesn't get talked about a lot, but in essence, when you are building something, you're building the ideal world. You're creating something that didn't exist before, that you think would be useful, or you like actually want to spend your time doing, right? So what a cool use of your nights and weekends if you burn down the candle building the future. Um, so I want to ask you, because of course not just builders are watching this, of course speculators are as well. For the ocean hodlers, why would they maybe consider buying H2O instead? You don't have to shell, I'm just trying to get your strategic advantages, pros and cons, right? H2O versus ocean.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think it's an either or. I think that they're very very complementary protocols. I mean, H2O sort of as I mentioned earlier, or may have mentioned, I don't know. I've actually been on a few podcasts today,
Yeah,
so
I
I can't
noticed.
remember what was said in which one. But H2O, like the goal of the project, right, or of the H2O asset itself, is to be a medium of exchange for data economy, and actually part of that is to eventually become data backed itself, right? So it's like of data and for data, right? And because it is still early. It was even earlier, like over a year ago when we first launched the project. We sort of at that point decided to use Ocean Token as a sort of proxy for the data economy, which made a lot of sense, right? And so we sort of backed the H2O unpegged stable asset with Ocean in our roadmap towards H2O V2. That's been sort of like you know it's been a bear market, last year. Let's be honest, right? It's been kind of a rocky road, but I think I see great potential in data economy this year, and where we want to go with that is like once there's a broad and a deep enough data economy with sort of like let's call them like bellwether data assets and these sort of concepts, right? We have yet to see sort of how that will exactly unfold, so we're taking a wait and see approach, but we actually want to use data assets to back H2O itself, right? More, in addition to Ocean Token, and H2O Protocol, right, has a number of different tokens and products under it. One of the ones that I'm most excited about is PSDN Ocean. The reason there's that naming is because our governance token is PSDN, and we created since Ocean went to a VE model, we created PSDN Ocean. That's a liquid stake wrapper for VE Ocean, so folks can get some of the exposure to some of like the staking rewards and other the benefits of VE Ocean without having a locked position.
There is a lot to unpack there. If viewers aren't familiar with data farming DApp that Ocean offers, VE CRV, like Curve's VE CRV token, is the model that we use at Ocean for the data farming DApp. And then, so what you're saying is by investing, for example, in Poseidon Ocean or PSDN Ocean, that is exposure to the data farming app without having to do the whole staking and lockup of your tokens
It's
there
more
on
like
the DApp.
passive. You get some of the
Right.
active benefits by being passive. Bang on, exactly.
Yeah. So it's interesting. This is part of why I love crypto. You touched on this novel concept for me that I haven't heard before. I haven't heard rumblings before yet at Ocean, which is the idea of backing a cryptocurrency with data. And so you can think of a gold standard, gold backing up the value of a paper currency. And then instead of a gold standard, a data standard, right, where the value of the data is itself the value reflected in the token. In a sense, I would say that Ocean Token kind of does that because it's a utility token. but obviously, there's speculators out there, holding, selling, whatever, for all sorts of reasons. With regard to a data standard, and then you were talking about these bellwether data sets that may indicate traction in the field. All of that is really cool. I don't know if you have any specific data sets that come to mind.
Yeah, it's very like forward looking. Like
Okay.
if I had to guess at what that looks like, right, it might look like a basket of, again, based on where we are today, right? Right, just a guess, right? It could be a basket of data tokens that represent access to popular and long running chatbots,
Huh.
right? Like
Okay.
domain specific chatbots. Like what we're seeing is, like, there's these vanilla chat GPT. People
Right.
point out that, there's a point at which they stop sort of training. So there's like new data that comes in that they're not aware of. And then there are also data sets out there that are not like commonly crawled or scraped or in these, corpuses of text that's hoovered up into the data models, right? And for
Yeah.
that matter, I think one of the things we sort of demonstrated at the Augment Hackathon last week was that, very actually very cool example, right? So we actually trained this in the demo. We trained we worked with a data modeler. His name is Bellows. He trained a language model on the documentation from the H2O protocol, right? And
Hmm.
this actually demonstrates things really nicely. We asked the chatbot, well, okay, what is H2O, right? A vanilla chat GPT would have answered, oh, well, this is the chemical symbol for water, right?
Hmm.
Whereas the bot that we train answered, H2O is a non-pegged stable asset for data economy, like yada, yada, right? So, I think that kind of immediately maybe triggers people why domain-specific custom LLMs are actually going to be valuable, right? Because,
Hmm.
depending on how you curate the data that goes in, right? And maybe to your earlier point, Veronica, maybe it may interest people in the future, like what data was fed into the LLM in order to get particular results, right?
Yeah, that's cool. And I guess on the top of my head, I don't really immediately jump to thinking about data tokens that gate large language model chatbots, right? But it's certain that the popularity of chatbots is going to increase as they get better, and so a data token gated chatbot, that token, the data token itself, would definitely be a cool bellwether to watch, to see if there's traction in data, decentralized data, and AI overlap. Um, I have this cute little kind of mental model that I do want to share with our viewers who have any kind of MBA or corporate finance kind of understanding, which is, the idea of an intangible asset, for example, um, on a corporation's balance sheet, it might be, um, how do I put this? It's difficult to value your intangible assets, right? Your IP. And data in itself, it's really hard to quantify the value of that data, right? Like Google has their own net income and their own, kind of objective balance sheet, but it's really hard to quantify the value of the data that they possess when they possess so much data. So, kind of in this essence, that previously it was very difficult to value intangible assets, I would say. And then now with the tokenization of data itself on chain, it becomes actually pretty rational to be able and objective to be able to value that data as an organization's, as a company's asset. So I think that's a clever innovation that we only really saw from data tokenized on the blockchain. Um, but I do want to kind of skirt past that topic a little bit. And we were talking about H2O token, and also Poseidon Ocean token, VE Ocean token. I know there's a lot there. With H2O, what is the vision? I mean, I know that you don't necessarily want to unveil what is down the pipeline, right, to the viewers. But what is kind of your ultimate vision for how that's going to help the data economy? I know that you call it a non-pegged stable asset. And to a lot of viewers, that might sound like an oxymoron, right? Like, how can something be stable if it's not pegged to another currency? So can you talk a little bit about, like, why is the non-pegged stable asset architecture important to the future vision of what you're trying to build with H2O protocol?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, we see, H2O being this, data native, medium of exchange and unit of account for, data interchange, people, trading data using this asset. Um, like, I guess it comes from, the fact that, we're sort of, it's sort of built on, a reflex array technology, and so it inherits, a lot of the, maybe sort of like terminology and thinking around that, right? Where instead of, trying to always remain at a certain price, let's say, versus some denominator, maybe the most common one that people think about is the U.S. dollar. I think what people are realizing is that, those that underlying denominator is itself perhaps not stable, right? Like we're
Right.
observing, over the course of like human time frame, as people are observing that the purchasing power of some of these, things that we think about as stable are in fact not stable. And I think that, we kind of acknowledge that, and it's not a purely algorithmic stable coin, but it's one with a stability mechanism. And, by virtue of it being built on the RAI technology, there's something called a PID controller,
Mhm.
proportional integral derivative controller, very famous type of controller that's
Mhm.
been used in engineering now for many years. It keeps airplanes in the sky, it lands, rockets on the moon, things like this.
Yeah.
And the thinking was that the same well vetted kind of engineering mechanism would be able to, provide some stability and control to a price. So you can think of it, like the original RAI protocol, RAI, right, from Reflexor Labs, could be thought of as like a volatility dampened Ethereum, because they used ETH to back theirs, right? So
Mm.
maybe a way to think about H2O in its present state right now is, a volatility dampened ocean token as a proxy for data economy, right? Over time, as I mentioned, we want to introduce, other assets there, as these sort of bellwethers emerge, right? Still anyone's guess as to what those might be, but me personally, like, I think it's poetic to have, a asset for data exchange, and it's also, backed by data itself, right? So then, there's been, discussion over the last couple months. I mean, we sort of been quietly thinking that's sort of the direction we would go, but recent developments have sort of pointed towards stable coins being backed by, whether they're called liquid staking derivatives or liquid staking tokens these days, right? Essentially like VE tokens, right? And staking,
Mhm.
and sort of, other assets of that sort that, actually can be used to back stable coins. And at the same time, they generate yield, right? So like in effect, what can happen is depending on how the exact tokenomics work out, and they're sort of being worked on, as we speak. It's possible that we may be able to arrive at a system where you're sort of paid for holding the stable coin because it's backed by a yield generating asset, right? So,
Hmm.
to me, like those are the sort of things on the horizon that like excite me a lot. But again, I think that, we really have to see how the data economy unfolds before, committing to a particular design, right? Being, rather than being prescriptive, right? Being, kind of taking like observing first to see what happens, and then, you know um, building something and designing something to, to work with the ecosystem as it is, rather than how we would like it to be.
Yeah, so I want to backtrack real quick and paraphrase what you said, and then talk a little bit about the yield generating tokens. So basically, what you're saying is the fact that it's called a non-pegged stable asset is more of a head nod to the fact that stability or pegging something to what we perceive is stable, it is really just that. It's a perception that something is stable, whereas it might not really be, like the US dollar, for example. And then what you can call stable in the definition of H2O is that data backs the stability of that token. Why I did want to kind of tease out here, why is the volatility dampened feature of H2O token dampening the volatility or having a dampened volatility relative to Ocean token? Why was that coded into the token? What's the advantage of that?
Yeah, that's where the stability part comes in, right? So even though it's not like pegged to like one ocean or $1 or whatnot, right?
Mhm.
The
I
algorithmic
see,
part
I
of
see.
the algorithmic part will try to keep it kind of roughly the same.
So
If
it's
that makes
it's not the data that keeps it stable. It's the actual PID
there's a
controller
mechanism exactly. Yeah. So
algorithm.
sorry, I was tossing around two different ideas there, right?
I
Yeah,
see, I
one is this
see. No, it's
PID
okay.
controller.
Let me clarify as well for the viewers. I know a little bit about PID controllers because I studied electrical engineering, and the example in EE of a PID controller, obviously they're used in, or not obviously, but they are used in airplane controls as well. But a PID controller, the easiest example is like your air conditioning unit. It is a small device that, basically in the most simple algorithm for a PID controller is when temperature goes beyond X amount, kick on the AC. When it goes below a certain amount, stop or turn on the heater, right? It's like a very simple algorithm with these limits, right? And then you can kind of control, stabilize.
Absolutely, there's some smoothing that goes into there, right? So you don't get things like bang bang, it turns on off on off on off. Like that's sort of what you don't want in a control system, right? Yeah, I think you get it.
Yeah, so in a way, in that simplistic example where you would stabilize a temperature, you can kind of algorithmically do that as well using a similar kind of logic, not necessarily the same code at all, but a similar logic in the algorithm for stabilizing an asset that is normally more volatile. And then just to kind of clarify on the airplane controls there, when uh, planes' wings are starting to get beyond a certain I guess it's called like yaw and pitch. I don't know the exact terminology
Yeah,
from
meaning I'm
flying.
not a pilot.
Yeah, but you would imagine that like the plane has certain mechanics that would adjust to make sure that it stays on course or at a certain altitude or speed. But so I understand now what you meant by a PID controller stabilizing the H2O token compared to Ocean. Why is that stability important for the future?
I mean, in terms of exchange, like when you're exchanging something, using something as a medium of exchange, or maybe a unit of account here, more importantly, like during the course of that, like pricing and exchange, you'd like the price to remain relatively stable, right? And that's sort of
Mhm,
been like a famous, kind of criticism of tokens, cryptocurrencies in general, as being used as a medium of exchange. They're generally too volatile, right?
mhm,
And then so that's specifically what that stability mechanism, provides is within like bounds, right? The price does stay relatively stable, demonstrably over the course of human terms, like human timelines for someone to achieve a commercial transaction, and even beyond that, right? So for like when you're doing an exchange, it's good to have a roughly constant level of value, let's say, for the medium of exchange here.
Yeah, so even though Ocean Token is in itself a utility token, that there is utility in other niche circumstances to use H2O token, which is more stable than Ocean Token. And it also maintains a relationship with Ocean Token. But that perhaps at this time, that H2O is very future forward technology. And so I think if I'm understanding correctly, that these bellwether data sets that we'll be selling and utilized to token gate AI tools, that those might be the ones that are going to be leveraging H2O instead of ocean, possibly, or something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually possible today, right? Is H2O is one of the two tokens that can be used for data interchange on data exchange on ocean market. So yeah, I mean, it's really up to consumers' preferences, right? If people prefer working with like so-called like naked ocean tokens, then great. If people want to have this stable asset that perhaps if we if we're able to get to where we want to get to with V2, a stable asset that's also like a yield generating asset as well.
Mm-hmm.
So again, kind of full disclosure, like we're not there yet. It's I mean, the stable asset's there. It's usable. We used it during the hackathon, but so I would say, to folks that are interested in following, stay tuned to what H2O is building, and then also for folks that are interested in um, checking out and meeting sort of other protocols and projects in the space. If you're into like DeSci or data Dows or decentralized data, we've got this DataFi alliance that many of the folks in the ocean ecosystem are also sort of hanging out there. It's sort of a place to meet other builders and folks that are thinking about DataFi specifically. Again, buzzwords, right, about the financialization of data using
Mm-hmm.
tokenization and DeFi technologies. So we're not the only ones, but I would say like we're among the first.
Definitely. And a lot of the tech that you guys build is really novel and is touching on mental models and business models that have never been capable before the blockchain, sometimes not capable before AI, or AI has become actually practical to use in a large language model service for humans. So, mad respect for what you guys are building because it really is the future, and it's hard being a early pioneer in any field, but tech is already tough to begin with. So, super props to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, Veronica, like we'd have nothing to build on if Ocean Protocol hasn't laid the groundwork, right? So definitely this is one of those things where we're building on years of innovation and hard work from your team. So thanks for being there.
No, of course. I think that honestly, early founders or early tech pioneers are all kind of cut from a similar cloth, right? You're thinking about these ideas decades ahead of, everyone's thinking about, what to buy on eBay or Amazon, for example, instead of thinking like how to solve these pain points for businesses in the future when AI is dominating the public goods space. So it's it, I do appreciate the compliment that you gave to Ocean for also doing some futuristic pioneering work as well. But definitely, we're both in that boat together. So I want to get a little bit of a fun kind of topic in here as we wrap up. What are projects that you follow and love in the crypto space? Like it could be anything.
Okay, those are some good questions. What am I excited about? Um, just off the top of my head, a couple things. Very excited about, in no particular order, by the way.
Sure.
Very excited about some of the stuff that Celestia's building around modular, like the whole modular thesis, modular data availability, layer for other protocols and networks to build upon. Another one that comes to mind actually is a project that I learned about like too late. I wish I learned about it like way earlier. They're still building though. I don't know. Actually, I do have the shirt. I managed to attend the ZK hack. Here in Lisbon. I'm taking this call from Lisbon. It was a couple of months back now, but I learned about this project called Risk Zero, which is actually really fascinating. If you haven't dug into it, like read about it, I think it's going to be a real game changer. Is these folks? I'm not. I tell people like full disclosure, I'm not a cryptographer, right? So like,
Uh-huh.
like deep knowledge of how zero knowledge cryptographic systems work. It's not really my bread and butter. I'm more of like an applied cryptographer, if anything, right? And but what Risk Zero is they found a way to encode like a fully functional CPU as a zero knowledge circuit, meaning you have like this encrypted and verifiable CPU that can run essentially arbitrary code, right? If you've written an algorithm in C, like this will run it in terms of inside a zero knowledge rollup, right? So what's really cool is like kind of circling back to something that we said right at the top of the our conversation, was that it really kind of fulfills that promise of being able to prove that a particular a particular algorithm was run on particular data and produced a particular outcome, and all at the same time. This will let all that stuff be provable, and yet um, I, from my understanding, the promise is there to also keep that data private from anyone else,
Mm.
right? So it's privacy preserving on top of all those other things, which is, it seems like, if it works out, I mean, they haven't launched yet. I'm hopeful, but if it works out, like, it just sounds like a really amazing technology, almost like a holy grail in terms of what could drive data economy to the next level, right? Is a lot of the concerns around like privacy, like intellectual property leakage, these sort of things can I think just be eased with a lot of these zero knowledge technologies. So yeah, those are some of the things that I'm probably most excited about.
Cool. Well, I know it is close to the weekend and you are in a super beautiful place. Lisbon is on one of the places that I would like to see before I die. And so I want to give you the space to enjoy your weekend, and also to thank you so much for speaking with me, because I really did learn a lot from you, Marek.
Okay, thanks a lot, Veronica. It's been great chatting with you. Well, hopefully we talk again sometime.
Thanks. Guys, if you enjoyed what you saw in this video, let us know by giving us a like, subscribing, and letting us know in the comments. Also, if there were topics that we didn't cover that you would like us to cover next time, go ahead and leave those in the comments below, and we will try to respond or wrap those comments up into some future content that we create.